Hey everyone, it's James, also known as Flagman, and welcome to my video covering the weird or snowgrave route of Deltarune. On September 15, 2015, American composer and indie game developer Toby released Undertale, a JRPG-inspired indie game with the mechanic of sparing enemies instead of slaughtering them, and your actions in the game influencing the story. An immediate smash hit and extremely popular in Japan, it launched him to stardom and got him into actually collaborating with Nintendo and several other Japanese video game companies on various projects. Fast forward 3 years later, and Toby Fox would create a spiritual successor to Undertale called Deltarune, released in an episodic format with different episodes being released over time, and recruiting an entire team to assist with development, along with Undertale main artist Temmie Chang returning as well. The first 2 episodes of the game were released in 2018 and 2021 as a free demo, followed by the additional paid release of the 3rd and 4th episodes in 2025, along with the first 2 episodes. Each episode, or chapter as they're called, gets crazier and sillier than the last, with some serious undertones coming into play as well later over time. And I didn't think I'd enjoy this game at first, so I'm really happy I did, because of all the characters, the writing, the humor, and also the soundtrack. Deltarune is probably my favorite indie game of all time for those reasons. But there's also a really dark secret that the game doesn't tell you about unless you actively search for it. There's a darker, alternate path in this game that takes place, and the game tells you off for going down this path and trying to descend further on it. This path is the Weird Route! If you've ever wondered what a video game would be like if the player was a bad guy, or if you're a fan of Deltarune, you've come to the right place. First discovered on September 19, 2021, shortly after the release of the 2nd episode, the Weird Route, or Snowgrave Route as a bunch of fans call it, myself included, is an alternate darker story path in Deltarune. While it is similar to the Genocide Route back in Undertale, there are many differences between the Weird Route. The Genocide Route is something you stumble upon by chance, whereas the Weird Route is something that you have to search out yourself, and the things you come across have a major impact on our protagonist Chris Dreamer and many of the other characters and the world in the game. This video is going to cover everything that happens in the Snowgrave Route, how to access it, how to stay on it, how to forfeit it if you wish, the events that happen if you go down it, the changes and differences that result from it, and my own personal commentary on it. With that being said, I'd like to advise everyone ahead of time that this video does contain topics that some viewers may find disturbing, so please be aware of that. And also, this video will contain a few spoilers ahead for Deltarune, so if you haven't played the game yet, I'd highly recommend playing it yourself, especially since it's a game best played blind on your first playthrough. And lastly is my social media. I have a Blue Sky, Instagram, and X page, as well as a Discord server, with all links in the description. Anyways, let's jump into the video. So to begin is to go back in time, and that begins with turning back the clock to 2021 when Chapter 2 of Deltarune was released. While Chapter 1 was a great introduction to the world and characters, Chapter 2 is where the game truly hit the ground running. There are so many awesome and hilarious moments that take place when the game goes on. All of Queen's crazy antics, the dance battle with the sweet Captain Cakes trio, exploring the Cyber City with Noelle, the romantic Ferris wheel ride with Noelle and Susie, the shenanigans happening at Queen's mansion, the redemption arc of Burley, and who could forget the final boss fight against the Giga Queen, all in the style Punch-Out! Chapter 2 was amazing! After the first boss fights against Burley and Queen, you're given an option if you'd like to tour the city with Susie or Waltz. Instead, Susie drags Waltz away from you, and you're by yourself entering the Cyber City. Eventually, you come across Noelle, and she attempts to hide from Queen, and then Queen hides from Burley. I'm not even halfway through, but this is all the silly you're gonna get right now. But you make a truce with Queen to search for Noelle and keep Burley at bay because Queen finds the latter annoying. Let's be real, does anyone really like him? And then you finally form a truce with Noelle, and this is where things get chilly. It turns out Noelle and Chris had some history with each other before the events of Deltarune. Specifically, their families, the Holidays, and Dreamers respectively used to be close to one another. However, following Dessa's disappearance/death and Asgore and Toriel's divorce, things went sour and the two families have since drifted away from one another. So despite no hostility towards each other at the start, things are a bit weird between the two, but over time on a normal path, things between Chris and Noelle go smoothly, and eventually their friendship gets restored. And subsequently, Noelle starts hanging out with Susie later, and also again in Chapter 4, or At least that's what happens on the normal route. When I first played Deltarune, I was not aware of the Snowgrave route until it was directly addressed to me by my live chat during the stream of the game. But after reading online on the Deltarune wiki and watching other videos on it, I knew I had to try this myself. And now it's time to descend to the dark side. They have cookies Noelle baked. Funny enough, the weird route is actually foreshadowed on the normal path. When you check Lantern your key items, once Noelle joins the party, he asks, "Can we make them a bad guy?" Well, I don't know, but we can sure give it the old college try. Before you do anything else, it's best that you save as soon as Noelle joins your party and not save again until further notice. After that, you must first backtrack to the garbage dump where you landed, and at first Noelle will protest your decision, and she even says that she doesn't expect this to end well. Your first enemy is a Varu-Kun, and upon entering the battle, Noelle outright panics. So Varu-Kun explains how the battle works, and during the scene, Noelle mentions Dragon Bladers, which I assume is the in-universe equivalent to Deltarune. Now, I should probably describe right now what kind of party member Noelle is. She's basically a wizard, or witch in this case, like Raltsei, and has the same spells as Raltsei. She has a healing spell and a pacify spell, but she also has a spell that can be used to hurt enemies called Ice Shock. It costs 60% of your tension points, or TP meter, and I'm pretty sure you're all wondering, James, what does Ice Shock do? Well... normally, if you choose to defeat an enemy by violence, they run away. If you defeat an enemy using Ice Shock, they freeze solid, and their frozen corpse remains in the overworld after the battle ends. This is the very first step to starting the Weird Route, and to stay on it, you must use Ice Shock on every single enemy you encounter from this point onward, until further notice. Additionally, there was a strange blipping sound that played when Noelle froze the enemy, and it plays almost every time you progress down the Weird Route. This is the first difference the Weird Route has from the Genocide route of Undertale, where in that route you basically killed all the enemies until none remained, whereas here you have to defeat them under certain conditions, and if you make a mistake or miss something, you end up forfeiting the route. Forfeiting the route at any point will play this sound. So to keep on the path, you must follow all the specific directions, because if you miss a direction, you could accidentally forfeit the route. No turning back now. Your next encounter is on the first of 3 annoying mouse puzzles. You have to move the blocks around to get the mice from point A to B. Funny enough, this first puzzle on a normal playthrough you can actually skip, and it doesn't affect anything. Each time you try to leave, Noelle will try bribing you to stay and do the puzzle, such as doing Chris's homework or reminding them of the freshly baked cookies they made. And then she finally asks, "Chris, are you really gonna leave me?" You have 2 options: "Sorry, I'll do the puzzle," and "Proceed." The latter word will continuously show up on the Weird Route, and it becomes almost impossible to ignore. You'll be given an option other than Proceed if you wish to forfeit the route. An alternate dialogue will pop up. You must click Proceed every time it shows up to continue the route. After Noelle and Chris escape the first annoying mouse route, Noelle thinks to herself, seriously, when did Chris get so bossy? It's also worth bringing up how, unlike most other video games, you don't actually play as the main protagonist, despite Chris being the main protagonist. And just in case you forgot when Chapter 1's ending enforced it, what you actually play as is the soul. But when you play as Chris, you're playing as the soul puppeting Chris. And the very first person in the game's world to catch on to this is Noelle, of all people, mainly because they're her childhood friend. And this becomes more noticeable later on. One thing that is worth noting is that a common recurring element in Deltarune is that the player is going against what Chris desires, and this is regardless of whatever route you're taking. Instead of having our own character to use, I'm stuck being the puppeteer of Chris in this puppeteer and puppet role for unexplained reasons for now, despite Chris having an established personality and terrible home life as I've read before in a Tumblr post. I'll put a link in the description if anyone wants to read it. The next major encounter on the Weird Route takes place at the advertisement for a Ferris wheel, almost like the one in Niagara Falls or the London Eye over in Britain. On a normal playthrough, you can read it, and Noelle will ask you if Susie would like to ride with her. You can either say Susie would, Susie wouldn't, or if you want to joke around with Noelle, you can say, "I will ride with you." Noelle shrugs this off as Chris just playing or one of their pranks like when they were children, and in the normal prep you can also prank Noelle again at an electric fence, and she'll also prank you back. It's pretty nice to see some chemistry between Chris and Noelle, but on the Weird Route, you have another set of options. You can either apologize or say, Noelle will ride with me. She's a little hesitant, but will take up your offer, play along with Chris's, or to be more accurate, my joking. You may have just noticed that the previous response was in first person, and this will be something that happens a lot in this route. The next major event aboard the Weir route is at an Addison store, and in case you haven't noticed yet, many Addisons and Swatchlings have vanished so far. It's not a subtle change, but it's a good indicator that things are not going the way they're supposed to. Speaking to the Addison, we'll have him sell you a pair of dating shoes, and you normally respond with, we're friends, and Noelle ponders whether they truly are friends, so to hear quote-unquote Chris say this, it brings her delight. But to keep going down the Snowgrave, you must say, we're something else. This takes Noelle out by shock, and she makes it clear there's no good interpretation for that. You can actually do that on a normal route playthrough if you're feeling a little silly, and the shop owner will try to sell you divorce shoes. But when you try to leave on a Snowgrave playthrough, he'll try to sell you a freeze ring, which Noelle is easily convinced to buy when Addison tells her it's essential to getting stronger. The freeze ring will always cost $1 more than your total money, so how do you end up getting something just slightly out of price? I'll just say, it's not pretty. Get it? Get it? Get it? Get it? I told you getting the freeze ring was not going to be pretty. Why I couldn't just trade a watch on Noelle's wrist in exchange for the freeze ring, I'll never know. Oh, and you don't actually have to freeze all the enemies first before you visit Addison. You can visit him before all the enemies up to this point have been frozen, but he won't offer you the freeze ring until after all the enemies have been frozen. The next area has a cutscene involving the force field puzzle, and this is mandatory to view to keep progressing the route. Usually, Chris holds one switch down so Noelle can cross, and as I said earlier, on a normal playthrough, you control her and give her a shock by stepping off the switch, and she'll give Chris one in return when they cross. On a Snowgrave playthrough, Noelle holds the first switch down, and as Chris crosses, she stumbles a bit, and afterwards, she chews herself out for it. Yes, you can also break the fourth wall with Noelle and mess around for thoughts. Clicking either it's horrible or natural will not affect the route. If you haven't been really paying attention, this is most likely where the game notifies you that you've derailed things. The background music switches to an alternate arrangement with a slower tempo. Most of the background lights, advertisements, and hazard symbols disappear. The traffic lights on the car road stop swinging in place. All save point descriptions are replaced with, "You and Noelle are filled with power!" And overworld enemies run away from you instead of charging towards you for a battle, like they normally would. To be fair, if you were walking down the streets of Toronto and saw a bunch of frozen corpses on the Garner Expressway, you'd probably just hop in a car, drive away, and lock yourself at home. In addition, Noelle now has a new set of battle animations. Cool, I guess? But at this point, any fun encounters you normally find on a normal route do not happen here. All you do is keep freezing enemies, and I just realized something. With how empty the city is, I can now walk on the streets and go to the dumpster that normally has the annoying dog, which, for those of you who don't know, the annoying dog is a character that appears in Undertale and Deltarune as a prankster to joke around with the cast in many hilarious ways, and serves as the avatar for Undertale and Deltarune's creator, Toby Fox, similar to how the Temmies are the avatar for Temmie Chang, the artist of Undertale and Deltarune, and a very close friend of Toby. Inside the dumpster, guess who we find here this time instead of the annoying dog? Looking for irresistible deals that will blow your mind? Well, shut your mouth because you are a weakling! Try a little Friday night workout. Then I'll show you my 4 left. It's everyone's favorite salesman from 1997, Spamton G. Spamton, and he's got something to sell us. Specifically, he won't show us what he's selling until we freeze every enemy. Him telling us how many enemies are left is another reference to the genocide route of Undertale, where the save points would indicate how many enemies are left to slay. Sometimes I wonder if Spamton was paying attention to our actions this entire time. Keep in mind, he is based on spam bots, which, you know, send spam mail. I'll get back to Spamton in due time for whatever treasure he has, but for now, I have the second annoying mouse puzzle. And I just realized. There's a laser blocking the switch. This puzzle is mandatory to solve on a normal route playthrough, but on the weird route, it's cold-hearted the way you solve it. Wait, did I say solve? Actually, no. You cheat. And you do it by forcing Chris to gaslight Noelle by invading her space. As I keep pressing proceed and forcing Chris closer to Noelle, I can see her getting scared with Chris invading her personal space. Proceed. 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 So similar to Flowey's vines in the genocide route of Undertale, Noelle freezes the entire puzzle over to avoid getting an electrical shock. And I'm sure you're about to ask me, James, why is it that everything on the Snowgrave route happens with Noelle? Well, when I said Noelle is basically a wizard-like route site, I even meant it personality-wise. The Holiday family is known for having a tough demeanor. Rudolph has been known to threaten to kick people's asses, his wife Carol is basically Margaret Thatcher in video game form, and Des, short for December, was known to whack Chris with a wiffle bat whenever they pranked her. Noelle, on the other hand, is not like that. According to Rudy, Noelle is terrified of everything and wishes that she could be more brave. She has a bad home life, similar to Chris, but at least Chris has a caring mom and a brother still in college despite Asgore and Toriel being divorced. Noelle doesn't really have anyone left. Father's in the hospital, her older sister is missing or dead, and Carol is a town mayor and is always out working at town hall. Usually. This has led to her becoming non-confrontational, and as such, she's easily taken advantage of and usually puts up with Birdley because he's a genuinely good person despite leeching off her smarts. And Birdley in general, as Queen said it best, is very annoying and at worst, an outright smartass. I'll get to Birdley in a bit, but now I must head over to the third annoying mouse puzzle. Now, this time, Noelle decides she's going to solve the puzzle herself in order to get stronger. Okay! Now I'm a little bit disturbed. Just hearing Noelle ask if I should find some more enemies is just outright horrifying. I'm not sure what is worse at this point, killing a bunch of defenseless enemies yourself, or getting someone to do the dirty work for me. When I first met Noelle Holiday at the edge of Cyber City, she was a sweet teenage girl who was a friend to many people, and now that I've taken advantage of her, she thinks it's normal to just cast Ice Shock on every single enemy she sees. It's really horrifying and is a grim reminder that this wasn't something I was meant to do. Going down the weird route is supposed to be punishing, and as a result, you end up missing out on many silly and fun encounters that happen on the normal route, and it makes you want to forfeit the route simply because there's no other reason to keep torturing Noelle and descending the weird route except for the fact that you simply can. Okay, let's go back to Spamton and see what he's got for us. Angel! Angel! Are you looking for the Ring of Thorns? Yes. That'll be 1997 Cromer. Yes. Here's your ring! Careful! It might sting! I can see why Susie called this a torture device. Forget about the gaslighting, emotional abuse, and mental abuse I've pushed Noelle through, but now I can physically abuse her. The Thorn Ring has the cost of Noelle's ice magic, but at the cost of having her lose HP over time. It stops at 55 of Noelle's current hit points, and if anyone has yet connected the dots from playing Undertale, 55 in Roman numerals is LV. LV means, you guessed it, your level of violence. And spoiler alert, if you've seen the prophecy in Chapter 4 of Deltarune, see the whole love finds its way to the girl. It's obviously referencing Noelle, and the love here is short for level of violence. It's pretty clear that Snowgrave can't be done when Susie is with us, and later in the game, it's revealed that Susie is the key to fighting fate and averting the potential tragic end of the prophecy because it's implied Noelle was supposed to be the girl or monster in the prophecy, and that she was destined to descend down the weird route. Another thing I also noticed is the fact that it's based on the crown of thorns that Jesus wore when he was crucified, and I'm about to be crucified next. Now, it's time to go battle against Birdley again in the alleyway, and if there's a room for me reserved in hell, make it for two, because...
Well, there you are. Just in time. We can both go back to Queen and... Noelle? Noelle? Noelle, it's me! Don't you recognize me? Noelle, are you okay? What are you doing with Chris? Getting stronger? How? Chris, what are you doing? Well, what? Proceed? Where? Noelle? What are they talking about? That's it, Chris. I don't know what you're doing, but if you're hurting my friend Noelle, then I have no choice but to stop you by force. Chris, ready yourself.
This whole encounter with Birdley is wrong on so many levels. Just the sheer fact that Noelle didn't even notice Birdley at first is already scary enough, and it shows that I've completed her transformation. And despite him being cocky and condescending whenever he shows up in this second encounter, he completely drops the act as I've become a genuine threat to him. And his grin drops completely, and the ominous pulsing music just adds to the horror of everything unfolding, and that comes after a line of Noelle warning Birdley to run away. Outside of a line when Chris is knocked down, there's virtually no flavor text. You can forfeit the Snowgrave route here by either sparing Birdley during battle or saying, "I'm protecting her from you" before the battle begins. Noelle and Birdley will have some unique dialogue for each situation. The whole battle itself is just grazing and defending, and you'll notice Birdley's attacks are a lot faster here than normal. Noelle will continue to lose HP during the fight, but you can ignore her because Birdley's attacks will always be directed towards Chris. Once you've gotten your tension points meter to the max, you can now cast a new spell in Noelle's arsenal that you get from the Thorn Ring. Snowgrave. Outside of a glitch, you can only use Snowgrave in this battle, and its description says, Fatal! You must have the forward equipped to Noelle, or you will not be able to use Snowgrave because it costs 200 tension points without it. And now that our tension points meter is full, it's time to cast Snowgrave. Funny how Noelle says that she doesn't know Snowgrave despite it being in her spell list. She will refuse to follow your commands at first, but you have to continuously keep selecting Snowgrave until Noelle finally snaps and casts it. What have I done? Congratulations, you've just passed the point of no return and have locked this file into the Snowgrave route. Look at what you've done. There's no reason for your actions except you simply could. You chose to manipulate Noelle into doing nasty things. In actuality, though, I believe Noelle knew what would happen if she casted Snowgrave, but was unwilling to perform it on Bertley. Seeing her give in traumatizes her to the point that she leaves the party. At this point, you're no longer able to go to Cyber City anymore. You're now free to save the game. A secret passageway opens up, and Chris is reunited with Susie and Raltsei. Raltsei reveals to Chris that Susie has a new healing spell, which, at this stage, sucks. And both Susie and Raltsei notice that Chris has a shell-shocked look on their face, most likely because they just saw Noelle cast Snowgrave on Bertley. After some light teasing from Susie, everyone heads into Queen's mansion, only to find out... What the hell happened here? Straight out of the gate, something is obviously not right because Rule's card has already been petrified. This prompts Raltsei to immediately explain to Susie and Chris how all Darkners, with him being the sole exception, all turn to stone if they stay away from their original Dark Worlds for too long. And it's a grim reminder just how long I was separated from the group. Even Lancer has also been petrified as well. To further punish me, Rule's card also was blocking the shop when he got petrified, indicating that all the Swatchlings here are gone. And there's only one save point now at the start of the castle, and even the music is replaced with a slow remix of Deal Gone Wrong. Also, since Queen isn't around, it confirms that Spamton has taken over the entire mansion. You can find out for yourself at the room to the right where you normally go to secret Spamton Neo boss fight.
Oh, you saucy little spun! You! Don't barge in when a man is changing forms! Wait 1 second! Is that Myosine the customer? Thanks to you and that little hoochie mama! I am living big! Soon I'll have everyone in the city eating right out of mine! Ha ha ha! I sure hope no one seals the fountain around now! Ha ha ha! I sure hope! I sure hope!
In the art gallery, all Queen's portraits have been plastered with Spamton's face, making him no longer shoot fire, but that's all the good changes you're going to get. Pretty much all the silly, funny encounters in this mansion are gone. What you have now is just going up the castle and a maze of enemies called Peepus. You can't spare these things, and bumping into one triggers a battle. These things are apparently an invasive species of freshwater clams, and it was apparently a plot of the Spamtons. Also, because I murdered Bertley, the party reaches the door of Noelle's room together, instead of Bertley and Susie reaching it off screen. In addition, the entire romance scene with Noelle and Susie does not take place on screen. And that's a shame because I think a lot of folks liked that scene. Susie comes back and simply tells everyone that she told Noelle that the entire Dark World is just a dream. Next up, I reach the rooftop. Queen has finally arrived and is completely unaware that Spamton took over the mansion. She explains how she searched everywhere for Bertley but could not find him. Gee, I wonder why. And that Noelle is resting and is no condition to assist Queen. She then gets in her Giga Queen robot, and just when I think there's an alternate boss fight, Raltsei immediately explains to Roy and her, and she just gives up. I was not expecting her to raise the white flag. Then again, it's pretty clear that Queen was a quote-unquote villain with good intentions. She tried to make all the Lightners happy, albeit she was consumed by her ego functioning for her brain. At this point, Susie decides to go visit Noelle again, while Raltsei stays behind with Queen. Chris is required to seal the Dark Fountain themselves. But there's a vending machine nearby if you manage to have some Dark Dollars on hand, giving you some items. Could there be an alternate boss fight? Let's see. There's the Dark Fountain, in plain sight. Seems like the We're Out version's chapter will have no final boss fight after all. Not!
Let me say thanks! Thanks to your total jackass stunt, I have become the Neo! And now it's my mansion, my city, my world! So why are you stealing the fountain? Me over right at the good part? What are you, a game show host? Ah, kid, forget it. I'm an honest man. I'll let you pay your way out of this one. With your rapidly shrinking life!
And would you look at that, the big shot himself, Spam to Neo, whose Chapter 2 secret boss on a normal playthrough, is instead the Chapter 2 Snowgrave Route final boss. And this time, Chris has to fight Spam to Neo solo themselves. To make up for it, Chris gets two new moves, X-Slash, which deals a ton of damage, and Fried Peepus, which will restore a lot of Chris's health. Additionally, the Soul can also now shoot the projectiles that Spam to Neo fires, similar to the Metaton fights from Undertale. His dialogue here is also genuine fury at us for trying to seal the fountain. One of the lines during this boss fight is,
I should have known you would have used my ring for evil! Oh wait, that's why I sold it to you!
He also tells us off for killing Birdly in his really special way, asking us,
You think making frozen chicken with your side chick is gonna let you drink of that sweet, sweet freedom sauce?
And he also uses the same style of talking when calling us out for using Noelle to kill all the enemies, and he even slut-shames her by saying,
I get it! It's you and that hoochie mama! You've been making, haven't you? You've been making hyperlinked blocked! And now that you have your own supply, you don't need me!
I can understand now why I wasn't supposed to go down the weird route because it's punishing, and the Spam to Neo weird route boss fight is a game way of saying you weren't supposed to go down this path. When Spam to Neo's almost down, this happens.
My esteemed customer, I see. You are attempting to deplete my HP. I'll admit, you've got some guts, kid. But in a one-for-one battle, Neo never loses. Now it's time for a little blue light special. Didn't you know Neo is famous for its high defense? Now, enjoy the fireworks, kid.
Spam to Neo's defense raises, but as a trade-off, his attack lowers. All he does here is shoot fireworks each turn, which you can fire back at or easily avoid. We can't damage Spam to Neo anymore, so all you can do is act. And even then, calling twice each for Susie or Raltsei will not work. But eventually the player, I, call for help. Or to be more accurate, I whispered the name of a certain reindeer close to Chris Dreamer.
Her! You're still trying to use her? You think she can hear you now? Muttering her name? What's she gonna do? Make me an ice cream? Hey, is it cold in here? Or is it just me?
Thank goodness Noelle Holiday was able to finish off Spam to Neo, but let's be honest, I only got to this point because I trained Noelle so much that anytime quote-unquote Chris whispers her name, she will sprint towards wherever they are and immediately assist us. Well, Spamton's dead, the fountain is sealed, and the Dark World has reverted back into the library's computer lab except... Oh my god, Burley's dead! Noelle shrugs this off as Burley, having fell asleep from studying so much, and she then asks Susie if she has a tail before leaving. Susie remarks to Chris that it doesn't really feel like they've saved the world, before things then continue as normal. Contrary to popular belief, you actually can still recruit some enemies on the Snowgrave route, assuming the only enemies you killed were with Noelle's Ice Shock attack. I managed to recruit the Wearer Wire, Mouse Wheel, and Task Manager, but everyone else I lost from doing the Snowgrave route. After inviting the recruits to Castle Town, you're free to explore the other areas of Hometown. If you go to the hospital, you can meet Noelle and Rudolph again. Rudolph has been wanting to meet Susie for quite a while, and in a normal route, Noelle, Susie, and Rudolph bond over one another. Going down the Snowgrave route, on the other hand...
Silver Drake, huh? That's a new one. Alright. What's the plan, honey?
I didn't think, when I commanded her to cast Ice Shock on all of the enemies in the Dark World, she'd start using Ice Shock in the video game she's playing in the Light World. Later, as Noelle leaves the hospital, this exchange shows up, and it's horrifying. Take a listen to this. When she mentions the quote-unquote voice that isn't Chris's, she's obviously referring to the player, or me in this case, in the player that forced her to use Ice Shock on all the enemies. You're given a choice to say you came to the hospital to see either Noelle or her father, none of which affects gameplay, but is a neat little detail. You can confirm to Noelle that the Dark World was real, or you can remain silent. Just like the last prompt, it doesn't affect gameplay. Most infamously, you can twist the knife further by unequipping the silver watch from Noelle in the Dark World and giving it to Chris. And if you still have it equipped to Chris in the White World, during the hospital scene, you get different dialogue where Noelle will panic and realize the implications. You can still take her watch in the Dark World and equip it to Susie or Raltsei, and she won't notice. The same will apply if you give it to any of the free heroes on a normal playthrough.
Hey, Chris. It's been already. Man, you can tell me about Noelle. Like, her favorite things, places she'd like to go. No idea what the hell that was about. So, how were you two doing? Guess she's afraid of me again, huh? Man, would be nice if she knew everything that happened was real. Huh, Chris?
Susie, I don't think that's a good thing to say right now. And at this point, Susie hasn't realized yet that Noelle is terrified of Chris, not her, and this is a result of Chris being separated from the fun gang for so long, leaving the player to do whatever they wish to Chris. Already this is getting chilling, and it's only going to get more chilling from here. The rest of the story proceeds as normal with the ending remaining unchanged. Alright, time to take a break from the Snowgrave route, and go have a fun-filled Friday night. I think Chapter 3 is definitely where many of us so far have gotten our money's worth on Deltarune. Right out of the gate, the episode begins with Raltsei and the revelation of the Dark Worlds, and ends with the first appearance of the main villain of Deltarune, the Roaring Knight. And between everything else, we have ourselves some really goofy moments, with the crowning jewel being the love triangle of Lenino, Elnina, and Rules card. Basically, we're resolving a messy breakup. Other silly, goofy moments include fighting a water cooler, of all things. A good chunk of Tenna's dialogue was just downright silly and fun. Come on, who didn't laugh at Susie making her gay name as ass? You actually can make Chris do the same as well, and Susie will have unique dialogue for it. There's also stealth sequences a little later in the chapter, and oh my god, that concert physical challenge at the halfway point of the episode rocked. Raise Up Your Bed is easily my favorite song composed by Toby Fox, and with lyrics that Raltsei bowdlerizes the hell out of. It only took like 24 hours for covers of that song to flood YouTube. You can also play the rock concert minigame in the chapter if you get a good score during the boards, and if you recruit enough enemies, Tenna will come to your castle town, and you can play the rock concert whenever you wish, along with 2 additional songs. Did I even get to the boards yet? A good chunk of the chapter is played on multiple boards, looking like the pyramids of Egypt or something. And many of the challenges here are based off The Legend of Zelda, with puzzles and quizzes happening throughout the story in game show style. Each board then has a physical challenge. The first one is a cooking minigame, and the second one is the rock concert I mentioned, which is heavily based on Guitar Hero. I'm not sure about you guys and girls, but I wouldn't have minded playing the third board. I get it if Toby Fox cut the board as he didn't want the game to drag on. Sometimes you have to know when too much is just too much. Now, the Snowgrave route doesn't happen on Chapter 3, but there are some unique dialogue changes that happen. For example, when Susie says,
If you get all sweaty playing games alone, you're gonna end up like Beverly, right?
Chris reacts negatively to it, prompting Susie to reply,
Hey, it's just a joke. Chill. Okay, no bad noises. I get it.
Additionally, talking to Raltsei about Chris going to the festival with No makes him respond with, Chris, I think that's a bad choice. I mean, I'm sorry. A bad choice to make alone. Noelle might want to go with Susie. I hope you can figure out a nice solution. There's also a hidden pathway called the Sword Route if you get or buy an S rank. And yes, I'll continue to confirm S is higher than A in a Japanese school rating system. In this, you can make Chris play the quote-unquote original game that Tenna based his game off of, and if you complete the Sword Route quest, you can try to fight the Roaring Knight. More on that in a bit. I won't go too into detail, but for the sake of this video, just like Lancer in Chapter 2, the Weir Route is foreshadowed in the Sword Route of Chapter 3. One segment on the second board is you go through an ice palace with a white hooded figure following you around. It will take damage upon freezing enemies and will make you freeze a blue bird. You may already recognize this as indeed recreating the events that happen on the Snowgrave route. It's outright chilling. Lastly, before we move on, I want to briefly touch upon the Roaring Knight itself. Everyone waited 7 years for it to show up, and I wasn't paying too much attention when I first played the game blind. But I noticed something about this cool, sinister, yet occasionally creepy design. Temmie Chang, you're an awesome artist, and you must be really lucky to work with Toby Fox. That looked very similar. If you look atop the knight's helmet, you can see antlers. The same antlers as the Holiday family. Additionally, from the fact their sword transformed from a baseball bat, the projectiles looking like snowflakes, and someone on Reddit pointing out that the knight and Noelle's screams sound similar, it's pretty obvious that the knight's true identity is established, and there's a pretty clear indication that the Roaring Knight itself is December Death's Holiday. But I don't know that as the time of filming this video, so I could be wrong, I could be right, but I think the answer will arrive at the next big reveal. All I know for sure is that this isn't the last time the Roaring Knight makes an appearance. Chapter 4 is the midway point of the game, and along with Chapter 3 is the most recently released episode in Deltarune as of time of filming in this video. You know how the 1980 Star Wars film, The Empire Strikes Back, had taken a darker turn, ended on a major cliffhanger for 3 years, and contained one of the most famous plot twists in film? You could say Chapter 4 Prophecy is the Empire Strikes Back of video games. This episode takes the gloves off, and the game goes from a comedic tone to a more serious one. That's not to say there's no comedy in this chapter, but the comedy takes a backseat here as instead, this chapter focuses on us chasing down Roaring Knight, and we have to seal 3 Dark Fountains this time. We also have a major plot twist coming up that Chris could potentially be moonlighting with the main villain, and that Mayor Carol Holiday could be having a hand in the villain's plans as well. Oh, I almost forgot. We have the revelation of the prophecy, we have Susie learn more healing magic and her bonding with Garrison Boone. We have Raltsei undergo a massive amount of character development, and then there's also the final boss fight against Titan. It may have only been overall a midpoint boss, but it gave off that final boss vibes that most other video games would. Just awesome. And while it was hard on my first go, it felt so good once I defeated it. Hilariously enough, when I replayed Chapter 4 to get footage for this video, I actually beat the Titan on my first attempt. Lastly, there's also an extended Light World sequence where you can explore Hometown before entering a Dark World. This usually happens in the epilogue of each chapter. While the Snowgrave route is not as prevalent in Chapter 4 as it is in Chapter 2, it still is as, and possibly even more horrifying than Chapter 2's Snowgrave route, and this time, it takes place in the Light World rather than the Dark World. The first major change happens at church. Normally, Susie proposes a study date at Noelle's house, with Chris coming along as well. Here, Noelle invites Chris and Susie over to her house instead. This causes Susie to remark,
hey, maybe things took a weird route right now.
Once you're at the Holiday Manor, Noelle will get a phone call, and in the normal route, you get an extended scene of Burley trying to invite Noelle to tomorrow's festival as his date, and it's really silly with Susie telling Burley it's not gonna happen. You can even tell Burley that Chris can invite Burley along, and then it's decided they'll do a competition against each other at tomorrow's festival. This does not happen on the weird route. Instead, she gets a call from her mother, the mayor, and nothing else. Interestingly, this call can also happen on a normal route playthrough if Burley was defeated violently at any point in Chapter 2. He'll still be alive, but his right arm will be paralyzed, and he'll be in the hospital recovering, meaning he'll miss out on his shift as a volunteer librarian. Afterwards, Susie tells Chris to go search the house for a bunker code. There's one in the guitar in Dessa's room, and as soon as you try to reach the code, Chris rips the soul out, preventing us from seeing the full code. But once they exit Dessa's room, things take a quick turn south. Chris tosses the soul into the gift box, and at this point, the vent maze begins. Usually in the vent maze, you can find Asgore cleaning in the bathroom, and it's hinted he's trying to reconcile with Toriel, and that he'll play a major role in later chapters, similar to how he was the king in Undertale. Additionally, that aforementioned twist I mentioned also is discovered in the kitchen when Chris goes to drink some chocolate milk and then play piano. Neither of these two events happen here. Instead of going down to the basement to shut the lights off, you can still go down the basement if you wish, where you'll see Susie searching for the bunker code instead of Chris. You have to go up to Noelle's room, and on the sofa is Chris and Noelle sitting there. When she's saying that all she could see was snow, most likely she's referring to when I forced her to cast Snowgrave on Burley. All she could see was snow and nothing else. If the library being closed for the weekend due to a lack of volunteers isn't obvious enough of our actions, it's now confirmed that sometime, most likely before the end of Chapter 2 on the Weird Row, Chris dragged Bertley to the hospital where he is in comatose. Additionally, they also went over to Noelle's house and removed the form ring from her finger, and even returned her watch if the player gave it to Chris, and told Noelle that everything in the Dark World and their behavior at the hospital was all just some stupid prank. Bertley is gonna get better. The Dark World was indeed a dream, and that Chris and Noelle never speak of this again. This scene is just tough for me to watch, as it shows Chris's genuine caring side, showing that, despite all their shortcomings and being stuck as a puppet for me, they're still human and they care about everyone in their life. They care a lot about Noelle and even about Bertley, who, both in and out of universe, is a condescending smartass but didn't deserve to be frozen into a coma. I've scared Chris so much that they went and reversed all the damage I did to the best they could. After Noelle finishes speaking to Chris, you're given a dialogue prompt. Please don't, or again, proceed. This is the first of multiple chances the game gives you for forfeiting the Snowgrave route, and Noelle will have a different reaction based on when you forfeit. Forfeit early enough, she'll just laugh the whole thing off. Forfeit at or near the final chance, she'll slap Chris across the face and scream at them never to scare her like that again, before subsequently apologizing for her freakout. Hooking on Please Don't forfeits the route, and Noelle notes that Chris did not say anything, and Noelle doesn't say anything either. She just thinks to herself and expresses relief that Chris is back to normal. This may imply that Chris is begging the player, via dialogue options, to not continue the weird route. Hooking on Proceed teleports the soul into Noelle's room. You can now put the soul back into Chris, but you have to do this quickly because if you take too long, Chris and Noelle will notice the soul and run out of the room, forfeiting the route. Even though I've picked up the strings to puppet Chris again, they still use whatever they can to stop me from torturing Noelle any further. I'm pretty sure Chris is already aware of what it's like to really be a villain, especially with the implications that they're moonlighting with the night, which is outright dubious if you think of it. But Chris has grown to fear me over the weird route, whereas in the normal route, Chris isn't fond of my presence, but doesn't outright despise me. Ultimately, this next act in the weird route is a lot like the third Lord of the Rings movie. You really don't want to watch, but hey, you've come this far. And even if I end up causing unforgivable emotional damage to the characters, I am still going down this path. You can forfeit the weird route there and then by clicking the three dots, and Noelle will just laugh the whole thing off, and she and Chris will agree to not speak of it again. But clicking on me allows me to finally directly talk with Noelle and initiates the coup de grace. Because it wasn't a dream! I heard! This is your final chance to forfeit the route, even if it's the cruelest way to forfeit possible, telling her everything was a stupid practical joke, that all the events were a dream, that Chris cannot hear her thoughts, and that it was a coincidence. Selecting it's not a coincidence permanently locks you into the weird route for good, and all remaining dialogue prompts with Noelle lead to the same ending. It's not a coincidence! Once again, I tell her through Chris that everything in the cyber world, everything I made her do, was indeed real. It happened, it snowed, and I'm outright confirming it to her. And yes, I am indeed the voice from her dream. And considering Noelle is my favorite character in both Deltarune and Undertale due to how cute she is, this is torture for me as it is torture for her. Hearing the Snowgrave route indicator signifies I'm permanently locked on the Snowgrave route for this file. And now there's one last step into making Noelle, quote unquote, stronger. It's time to reapply the Ford Ring! Congratulations. You just reapplied the Thorn Ring back on Noelle's finger. You've completed the transformation, and now her sanity is shattered. She's become Chris's servant, and I now have complete control over her. She's now all mine. Jokes aside, this whole scene is just godly frightening. The sheer fact that I intimidated Noelle by using her childhood friend as a puppet and forced the Thorn Ring back onto her, she almost looked like she was on the verge of breaking down and crying tears of fear. Hell, she was just frozen still like a deer in the headlights of a truck. And ominous music and blue tint don't help matters. And the fact that the player is also introduced as a force from above, deciding these two teenagers' destinies, adds a level of cosmic horror, like in Chapter 2. Do you think Chris wanted to make their childhood friend into their servant? Do you think Noah wanted her childhood friend to become her master? No! He didn't! And while I don't know what happens next with Noelle at this point, the fact both she and Chris now know that I've reversed all the damage control that Chris has done, Chris retaliates against me in a massive fit of rage in the next scene. Chris? Chris, are you okay in there? Just thought I'd let you know. Mayako is asking everyone to leave. And, I thought you were looking a little down today. So, I made a special treat for you. Your friend and I will be waiting for you outside with it. Feel better, Chris? I absolutely deserved that. Normally, Chris is a very silent and emotionless character who doesn't really react that much to situations, has the same expression on their face most of the time, and their voice, according to Noelle, is deadpan and mumbly. Here, though, Chris is justifiably angry at me for making their life hell and hates me so much for reversing their damage control that they now wish to die and want me dead with them. If you have the guts to look at Chris's stats, their health is 10 out of 20 HP, having committed self-harm in the bathroom. Chris would have probably committed suicide in their fit of rage had it not been for Asgore interrupting and knocking on the bathroom door. Once he exits the holiday manor, Chris meets up with Susie again. Asgore gives Chris some hot cocoa to cheer them up, and Susie tells Chris that she found one of the codes to the bunker inside the guitar, but forgot to read it as she got lost in conversation with Asgore, and later Carol forced everyone to leave the house. Susie remarks that the next time she and Chris stop at the holiday manor, she'll remember to write down the code. As in the normal route, you can head up to the Dreamer residence, and Susie will notice the door is locked, so Chris and Susie head down to the church. While they're heading down, Susie tells Chris about how Noelle was seemingly acting strange.
Damn, that whole thing was a disaster, huh? And this is gonna sound dumb, but you know what is kind of bites? They didn't even get to hang out, really. All three of us, I mean. You know, I said she wanted to talk to you, but something about her look was kind of weird. Why couldn't she just talk to you in front of me? What were you two talking about?
Judging by the red tint and the lack of any text, it seems that Chris is traumatized by what just happened between them and Noelle, hence the lack of a response. If I were Chris, I would try to say to Susie, you don't want to know, but didn't have anything to do with you. Once you click on any of the four sides of the dialog box, the scene freezes for 2 seconds, and then things go back to normal. Or do they?
It wasn't about me, right? What? Fine. I won't bring it up again.
While the remainder of Chapter 4 is mostly the same as the normal route, there are still a couple of differences in dialogue that take place. The first key difference is that if you talk to the old man, he'll ask Chris where they think the right way to go is. If they reply nowhere, he'll note that their words hold a peculiar ring, presuming that they are having some relationship trouble, and comforts them, claiming that everything will be alright. The second key difference is Chris attempting to choke themselves on an apple if you pass the tea down. The third difference is Chris having some different reactions to some of your prompts. And just don't try forcing Chris to think of Noelle. Just don't. But what shocked me the most was Raltsei's reaction to Susie seeing the whole prophecy. As most of us know, the cruelest thing so far anyone can do in Deltarune that isn't doing the Snow Globe Ralph is telling Raltsei, good, keep smiling, at the finale of Chapter 4. As always, I said, it's okay not to smile, and Raltsei responded back this time with, I want to believe again. I want to believe it can change. That there isn't just one ending. But what would that be? If there was something else, what would it be? And how do we know it wouldn't be something even worse? What I think is most chilling for Chapter 4 Snowgrove Route is the ending. Just like in the normal route, turns out the search for Toriel in the church was in vain. As it turned out, she canceled choir practice. Additionally, she started hanging out with Sans, and good God, I don't think Chris is enthusiastic at all about the idea of Sans becoming her stepdad. Especially with Sans' behavior right now, and even Susie is not thrilled with Toriel hanging with Sans. Especially because Toriel is outright inebriated. While I did enjoy the dynamic between Sans and Toriel and Undertale, as well as his dynamic with his brother Papyrus, here, it won't be long until Sans loses most of his fans he got from his popularity in Undertale, unless we get to see Papyrus in Chapter 5. And even then, I don't think his brother Papyrus would accept this on any level, and neither would Toriel's son Asriel approve of Sans becoming his lesser dad, unlike Lancer, who loves Rule's card being his lesser dad. Chris ends up going to bed, but is unable to sleep due to Toriel and Sans partying. Susie shouts at Toriel and Sans to turn down the music and let Chris sleep before reaffirming to Chris that they will not let the tragic ending of the prophecy happen before she heads home. Chris is about to hop out again and catch up with Susie, but before that can happen, a mysterious voice once again calls Chris, reminding him of a promise the two apparently made. Whatever this promise is remains unidentified as of the time of filming this video, but I think this cliffhanger will most likely be resolved in Chapter 5. The last part does not happen on the weird route, and instead you get a completely different ending. Susie doesn't show up after leaving the Dreamer residence, and instead of the mysterious caller, Chris instead receives a call from Mayor Carroll.
Chris, are you there? Then I'll just leave a message. You are going to the festival tomorrow, aren't you? I just wanted to confirm. Noelle said she's really looking forward to seeing you.
What have I done? So originally the plan for the festival is that Susie is going to take Noelle out to the festival, much against Carol Holliday's wishes, and Chris is apparently the third wheel because Susie is Chris's best friend now. It's also assumed that Birdley is going to be at the festival as well, and it makes me wonder what the four will get up to, and if the next Dark World takes place somewhere near or at the festival, and what comes next for the freed Delta Warriors. I won't know until Chapter 5 comes out later in 2026. However, in the Weir route, it seems there's a chance that Noelle might be taking Chris out to the festival as her date instead of Susie. Imagine a god from above using your body as a puppet and making you emotionally abuse, mentally manipulate, torture, and gaslight your female childhood friend into being a stone-cold murderer, and along the way also getting you two tied by a figurative red string into a master and servant relationship. That's exactly what happens with Chris Dreamer and Noelle Holiday on the Snowgrave route in Deltarune. And the fact that you make someone else do all the murdering instead of you doing the murdering only further hammers in the fact that you were not supposed to descend down the Snowgrave route. You don't stumble upon it by accident and instead must actively search for it, and doing the Snowgrave route is a literal punishment of the game where it will retaliate and punish you for doing your dubious deeds that you can do simply because you can by making the game unfun and not a fun experience for you. And that's Deltarune Snowgrave route and how it works to make the player the villain of the game. However, we have 3 more chapters of Deltarune left to go, and the game is not over yet. Chapter 5, as of the time of filming this video, is set to come out sometime in 2026. It could even be out now, as of time of uploading this video, while Chapters 6 and 7 are still in development. So, Part 2 of this video is going to come out in a couple years once all the episodes of Deltarune are released. All I can say for sure in both normal and Snowgrave routes, it's going to be very interesting seeing how the second half of Deltarune unfolds. Well, that's all the time we've got for this video. Thank you for watching my video of Deltarune Snowgrave route, and if you enjoyed content like this, please subscribe and click on the bell to get notified about any future videos, and also don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and X, and join my Discord server, with all links in the description. In addition, if you feel like it, comment down below on whether you did the Snowgrave route yourself and how you felt doing it, or why you chose not to go down it, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See you next time!